guys, today we are learning how to subtract fractions with different denominators. So you're going to be using the knowledge that you've learned from adding fractions and across the past few days when you've been subtracting fractions with the same denominators. So our first step is to have a look at our fractions and see 5 over 6 subtract 3 over 12. Check, do we have the same denominators? And remember, our denominator is the bottom number. So here we've got 6 and 12. So what we need to do is we need to change our fractions to equivalent fractions that have the same denominators. So to do this, we must find the lowest common multiple. Sometimes you might see this as LCM. So what we can do is we can create a list of multiples that our numbers go into. So 6, our multiples for 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, and so on. So remember, a multiple is the number we get when we multiply 6 by another number. So this is where our skip counting comes in real handy. And our multiples of 12 are 12, 24, 36. Now we want to find the lowest common multiple. So here we can see that 24 is a multiple of 6 and 12, but 12 is also a common multiple of 6 and 12. So we want to pick the lowest one, which is 12. So we can see one of our denominators is already 12, so we don't need to do anything to this fraction. So we're only going to have to change 5 over 6. So we need to think, what do we need to do to 6 to get it to 12? Well, we must multiply it by 2. So I'm going to show my working out, which is really important, and just put a little multiplied by 2 symbol. And whatever I do to my denominator, I always must do to my numerator. And that's a really important step that you cannot forget. I'm then going to write my new fractions out. So 5 multiplied by 2 is 10. And it's now going to be over my new denominator, which is 12, subtract 3 over 12. Our step 2 is just then to subtract our numerators. So we don't do any subtracting of our denominators. That stays exactly the same. So 10 subtract 3 is 7, and our denominator stays the same of 12. Our very final step is to convert our answer into a mixed fraction if we need to, which we don't, and to simplify. And this fraction here, 7 over 12, is in its simplest form because there is not a factor that goes into 7 and 12. So our answer for 5, 6 subtract 3 12 is 7 12ths. Let's do a few more so we get the hang of them. Our next one is 7 eighths subtract 2 over 4. So first step is we need to change our fractions to equivalent fractions with the same denominators, because here we've got 4 and 8 as our denominators. A trick that I always do is I always check, does the smaller denominator go into the larger denominator? So here, does 4 go into 8? So this is where I'm going to use my skip counting. 4, 8, yes, it does. So what do I need to do to 4 to get it to 8 is I must multiply it by 2. So I'm going to do times 2 at the bottom, and remember, whatever I do to the bottom, I always do to the top as well. Now we don't need to change this fraction, so we are going to write the new fraction out. So 7 over 8 stays the same. Subtract what's 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. And now it's over our new denominator of 8. Our next step is we subtract the numerators. 7 subtract 4 is 3. And our denominator stays the same. We check, can this be simplified? Is there a common number that goes into both 3 and 8? No, there isn't, so this is in our simplest form. So 7 eighths subtract 2 fourths equals 3 eighths. Next one, 2 thirds subtract 3 ninths. First step, do we have the same denominators? No. So we need to create equivalent fractions with the same denominators. To do this, we must find our lowest common multiple. So you can write the list out like I did before, or you can use the first trick. Does our smaller denominator go into our larger denominator? So does 3 go into 9? So think 3, 6, 9. Yes, it does. So how many times must I multiply 3 to get to 9? I need to 3, 6, 9, multiply it 3 times. So I'm going to show my working out. Multiplied by 3, remembering what I do to my denominator, I must always do to my numerator. Now this fraction doesn't get changed because 9 is our lowest common multiple. So I'm going to write my new fraction out. So 2 multiplied by 3 is 6 over 9, subtract 3 over 9. The next step is to subtract our numerators. 6 subtract 3 is 3, and our denominator stays the same, over 9. Our very final step is to simplify our answer if we need. So we've got 3 ninths. So what we need to see is what is the highest common factor that can go into 3 and 9. So remembering a factor is a number that goes equally into 3 and 9. So if you have a think about it, we can see that 3 goes into 3 and 3 also goes into 9. So think, how many times does 3 go into 3? It goes into it once. So you think 3 divided by 3 goes into it once. 9 divided by 3, which is the same as saying how many times does 3 go into 9, is 3 times. So our simplified answer is 1/3. 3 ninths is the correct answer, but we want to make sure that we're simplifying it to the simplest form. So 2/3 subtract 3 ninths equals 1/3. Let's do one final one together. 2/4 subtract 1/3. Check, are our denominators the same? No. Let's find our lowest common multiple to create our new denominators. So remember the trick that I said, check, does the smaller number go into 4? So does 3 equally, can we multiply it by a number to get to 4? So I'm going to use my skip counting, 3, 6. So no, it doesn't because I'm passing 4. So I'm going to write out a list of my multiples just to help me to make it really clear. So my multiples of 3 and my multiples of 4. So first, some multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And we can go back and go on if we need to. Our multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So remembering, we are looking for the lowest common multiple. So there might be several common multiples, but we want the lowest one. So I'm going to start from the lower end, from the left, and move up and see, are there any common numbers? So I can see 3 doesn't go into, isn't a multiple of 4, either is 6, so I'm going to move along. I can see here 12 is a multiple of 3 and it's also a multiple of 4. So that is our lowest common multiple. So now what we need to do is we need to look at our denominators and see how many times do we multiply 4 to get to 12. So what we must do is we must multiply it by 3. Showing our working out and doing exactly the same thing to our numerator, otherwise we'll get an incorrect answer. Now ask yourselves, how many times do we multiply 3 to get to 12? We multiply it 4 times, and we do exactly the same to our numerator as well. Now we're going to write out our new equations. our new fractions, sorry. So 2 multiplied by 3 is 6 over our new denominator of 12. Subtract 1 multiplied by 4 is 4 over our new denominator of 12. Our next step is to subtract the numerators. 6 subtract 4 is 2, and our denominator stays the same. It's really important that you don't do any subtracting of our denominators. That's often a common error. So our answer is 2 over 12. We need to see, can we simplify it? So is there a number that goes into both 2 and 12 equally? And often what I do is, I like the trick before, I check, does the smaller number go into the higher number? Does 2 go into 12? Yes, it does. So we do a 2 divided by 2 and 12 divided by 2 to simplify it, because 2 is our highest common factor of both 2 and 12. So how many 2's are in 2? There's 1. And how many 2's are in 12? Or it's the same as saying 12 divided by 2, which is 6. So our simplified answer is 1/6. So it's really important, guys, when you're subtracting fractions with different denominators, that you're following the steps of first checking, does it have the same denominator? If not, finding that lowest common multiple. Then writing out your new equivalent fraction, so it's really, really clear, with your lowest common denominator, and then subtracting our numerators only. And our very final step, which we often forget, is simplifying our answer. Good luck, guys, with all your problems.